Go ahead.
Heavenly Father, thank you for another opportunity to try to get it right. Thank you for instilling in Rex the desire to help upbuild us as well. Lord, keep your loving arms around us and protect our battlegrounds. Continue to protect our battlegrounds. Bless this family and help us to stay together. Give us the strength. Continue to do what you have us to do so we won't grow weary in well doing. Bless this session and allow us to feed on it. In your son, Jesus' name, amen.
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 All right, I'm gonna be real with you. This one's gonna be rough because a lot of stuff happened. There's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of God just being fed up with so many things, and a lot of prophecies being fulfilled in the early days of the Bible, second book of the Bible. So we start off in chapter 10 today. We're going all the way to 15. So try to make it short, but give you all the meat and potatoes for this day. So in chapter 10, it starts off with the locust, and Moses is told by God to go to Pharaoh again. He's hardened his heart, and that God be able to show his signs and wonders. And he tells him to let him know that if you do not let the children of Israel go, that locusts will be coming tomorrow, actually. And they shall cover the face of the earth, so that no one will be able to see the earth, and they shall eat the residue of what is left, which the hail has destroyed. Now, if you remember, the hail didn't destroy some of the crops because they haven't actually grown yet. But the thing about locusts is locusts are kind of like roaches, just worse. So locusts can actually dig into the ground and like eat seeds and things like that. So where the hail just hits the surface level and destroys the things that's on top, the locusts can not only eat the branches, but they can dig in and grab the little seeds that stops the food from flourishing. And another thing about the word earth. So the way the English language works, there is a bunch of things like the word to. It's spelled multiple ways, and they all have different meanings. But then there's words like earth, for this example, that spell the same way, but have different meanings. So earth can be like you holding a pile of dirt. Earth can be the planet, or earth can be a territory. So the word earth comes from I don't know the Greek word for it, but I know the Latin word for it is terra. And that's where we get the words like territorial, territory, and things like that. Earthquake in Spanish is terremotos, which is also derived from Latin meaning earthquake. So when you read things like this where it says it covered the whole earth, obviously it's not talking about the whole earth, because it just makes no sense for God to do that. Obviously, in this point in time, it's covering the point of earth that God is afflicting, which would be the Egyptian nation. So just keep that in mind when you're reading the Bible, so you can keep things in context, because it's correct in the theme of what's written in the Bible. But this is also one of those points where people will kind of come in and be like, well, they said God covered the whole earth. Why do you cover the whole earth if he's just upset with Egypt? So this is kind of one of those things where you have to kind of study other languages to find out what exactly the English translation is, because English is not the greatest at having all the translation, because English is like a compilation of a bunch of different languages. So just to keep that in mind. But the locusts will fill the houses of your servants, the houses of the Egyptians, which neither your fathers nor your fathers' fathers have seen since the day that they were on the earth. And it says the Pharaoh turned And he turned and went from Pharaoh. And then Pharaoh's servant said to him, how long shall this man be a snare to us? Let this man go, that they may serve the Lord their God. Do you not know that Egypt is destroyed? So at this point, even the Egyptian servants are kind of like upset with Pharaoh, because it's like, hey man, look, we've suffered 7 plagues up to this point. Your magicians and all those other people, they were able to replicate them, but they couldn't stop them. And some of them they couldn't replicate at all. And like, we're dying out here. Like, we've already lost our resources. We've lost our homes. We've had to deal with dead frogs, lice, flies. Some of our livestock has been diseased and killed. Boils, hail has killed our food, and now we're about to get locusts that's gonna eat the rest of our food. And you don't want to let these people go. So how long are you gonna allow him being Moses, to stay among us and cause these problems? So Moses and Aaron were brought again to Pharaoh, and this is verse 8. And he said to them, go serve the Lord your God. Who are the ones that are going? And Moses said, we will go with our young and our old, with our sons and our daughters, with our flock and our herds. We will go, for we must hold a feast to the Lord. Then he said to them, the Lord had better be with you when I let you and your little ones go. Beware, for evil is ahead of you. Not so. Go now, you who are men, and serve the Lord, for that is what you desired. And they were driven out of Pharaoh's presence. So we see that Pharaoh is trying to do like a little bargaining chip. First, he threatens them and tells them, God better be with you. And then he says, nobody's going but the men. That's not the deal. Moses said, all of us, everything must leave, because we have to serve. We have to give a feast unto the Lord. Pharaoh's not having it. Then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the land of Egypt for the locusts, that they may come upon the land of Egypt and eat every herb of the land, all that the hail has left. So Moses did exactly that, and the locusts came. So they covered the face of the whole earth, so that the land was darkened, and that they ate every herb of the land, all the fruit of the trees, which all the hail had left. So there remained nothing green on the trees or on the plants or on the field throughout the land of Egypt. So they borderline have no livestock. They had plagued water from the blood plague. They have lice, which is an issue because during that time, if you were unclean during certain ceremonial rituals, you couldn't partake in them. So let's say you were a high priest of Isis, and you had to be pure to be in Isis's presence to do whatever Isis demanded. If you have lice, that considers you to be unclean. So you can't do those things, which if you believe in Isis, that put you in a position where you feel like, all right, you're going to be punished for not doing your duties of X, Y, and Z for this deity. And then flies are also disgusting and carry disease. So if they're landing on you, they're landing on your food, your livestock, your plants, and all these other things, that causes another issue of being dirty. So the locusts are coming, or here. And then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron in haste and said, I have sinned against the Lord your God, against you. Now, therefore, please forgive my sin only this once, and entreat the Lord your God that he may take away from me this death only. So he went out from Pharaoh and entreated the Lord. And the Lord turned a very strong west wind, which took the locusts away and blew them into the Red Sea. There remained not one locust in all the territory of Egypt. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let the children of Israel go. Then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand forward toward heaven, and there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, darkness which may even be felt. Now, I have never been in darkness to the point where I can feel it, but that's not something I think I ever want to endure. But if we look this is, I believe, the first plague where God just immediately did it. He didn't tell them to go back into Pharaoh and tell him, let my people go, or this is happening. The locusts came. They had their conversation. He denied it. He asked them to come back. He said, please talk to God for me. Forgive me of my sin this once. Please take these locusts away. Moses does that for him. But he was like, all right, cool. I've given my people what they wanted. We have no more locusts. So God's like, all right, boom. We're going to give you darkness. But to the point where the darkness lasted for 3 days. And not only that, God was like, all right, cool. Everybody that's of the children of Israel, they'll have light in their dwellings. But anybody that's of that Egyptian servant Pharaoh, they were in that I can feel it darkness. So just imagine this, a darkness that you can feel that keeps you from like doing anything, to the point where you probably can't even see the light from the children of Israel. Maybe they could, but I mean, the darkness kept them from doing anything. So even if they did see it, it's not like they could reach it anyway. So Pharaoh called to Moses and said, go serve the Lord. Only let your flocks and your herds be held back. So this man has endured 9 plagues, blood, frogs, lice, flies, livestock diseased, boils, hail, locusts, and darkness. And he still wants to kind of patty cake, make deals with Moses. And I will say, like, Moses, from what we understand, wrote Exodus. So I can't imagine how he feels having to keep going back and forth, dealing with the same issue, knowing that this is just going to keep happening because God's already given him like a preview of, like, Pharaoh's not going to let your people go. Pharaoh's not going to let anybody go. And I'm going to have to do this because he won't heed the warnings. And now he's like, everybody can go except for the livestock. But Moses said, you must also give us sacrifices and burnt offerings that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. Our livestock also shall go with us. Not a hoof shall be left behind, for we must take some of them to serve the Lord our God, and even we do not know what we must serve the Lord until we arrive there. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart again, and he would not let them go. Then Pharaoh said to them, get away from me, take heed to yourself, and see my face no more, for in the day you shall see my face, you shall die. So Moses said, you have spoken well. I will never see your face again. And that is the end of chapter 10. So 2 threats, 2 negotiations, 2 plagues within a seems to be 3 to 4 day period. And this is the 9th plague, the 8th and the 9th plague. And Pharaoh still has not given in. Now, this is the point of breaking in chapter 11. And the Lord said to Moses, I will bring 1 more plague on Pharaoh and on Egypt. Afterward, he will let you go from here. When he lets you go, he will surely drive you out of here altogether. And so God tells him to speak, or tells him to speak to the people, the children of Israel, to talk to the Egyptians, and pretty much ask for articles of silver and gold, because God had given the children of Israel favor in the eyes of the Egyptians, because obviously the Egyptians can see that this stuff is happening to us, but it's not happening to them. So what's the correlation? Maybe if I'm nice to them, God won't let these things, their God won't let these things happen to me. So Moses does what he's told. And then Moses goes to Pharaoh again and says that, look, at about midnight, God's going to come and he's going to take the firstborn out of all of Egypt, whether you're children of Israel or not. But the caveat is God told Moses how to avoid getting the children of Israel's firstborn killed, animals and people. But Pharaoh wasn't trying to hear it. He told him to get out, and Moses is very upset at this point, because even with all that Moses has dealt with at this point in time, blood, frogs, lice, flies, disease, boils, hail, locust, darkness, a lot of that didn't lead anybody to get killed. A lot of that was just surface level things that, truthfully, most of that, if not all of these things, could be dealt with or handled. But you can't replace another person. You can't replace memories. You can't replace things that are near and dear to not only you, but your loins. Like your DNA can't be replaced in that regard. And at this point, Moses probably, I would assume, has the most sincerity of like trying to get Pharaoh to understand, like, look, this is the last plague. And I don't even know if he told Pharaoh there was the last plague, but it is notated that he told them that the firstborn of every animal and every person is going to be killed. There's going to be a cry in Egypt that has never been heard or never will be heard like this again. And Pharaoh just dismisses it. And so Moses, he could only do what he could do. God told him he wasn't going to listen. Pharaoh told him to leave. He left. So chapter 12 starts off with the Passover, and it goes into detail about what they were supposed to do to ensure that the destroyer didn't kill the firstborn. So the first month in which they would be considering the first month of the year was called Abib, Abib, and later it was, I believe, changed to Nisan or Nisan. It's one of the two, but it's Nisan. And it's believed that Abib translates into like the point of it's either March or April. So that is, I believe, that point in time where, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but Easter is like that point where it's like either late March or like early April, something like that. Because I know Easter changes every year. But he tells them on the 10th of this month, every man shall take for himself a lamb according to the house of his father, a lamb for a household. And if the household is too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take according to the number of the persons. According to each man's need, you shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats. Now you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. Then the whole assembly on the congregation of Israel shall kill it at twilight. So twilight is between sunset and the actual like dark setting in. So the research materials that I was reading, this says that it's roughly like 3 p.m. Roughly before like the sun's starting to go down, and then the moon's, or not necessarily go down, but get out of view. But that's when they were supposed to kill the lamb on the 14th day. So they're supposed to get the lamb on the 10th, hold it for 4 days, kill it on the 14th at twilight, And then you shall take some of the blood and put it on 2 doorposts and on the lintel of the houses where they eat it. Lintel is spelled lintel. So lintel is that little board or cross piece that goes over your door. So if you look at it, it's gonna be like a doorway or entranceway. So you got the 2 pillars, left and right, and then you got that. So if I don't have 3 hands, but you obviously get it. So I guess if I could do it like this. So you got that. So it's making a doorway. There's blood on this side, blood up here, and then blood on this side. But it has to be from the sacrifice of either that lamb or that goat that has no blemish, and it has to be within the 10th day you get it, and then you hold it for 4 days and you kill it at twilight. This is according to the Lord's Passover. Then they shall eat the flesh on that night, roasted in fire, with unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Do not eat it raw, nor boiled at all with water, but roasted in fire, its head with its legs and its entrails. Now, if you remember when they got off the ark, one of the things that God told Noah to not do was to eat raw flesh, because of the blood. So that is not only God reiterating what he told Noah, but this is also a throwback to that as well. Roasted in fire. We know that fire cleanses things. So at this point, we know the water is probably pretty contaminated. So that may have been one of the reasons God told him not to do it with boiled water, to kill any pesticides, or not pesticides, but anything that's like disease oriented that could have got them sick during that time. And unleavened bread is basically like flat bread. It doesn't have like yeast, and it doesn't rise. You shall let none of it remain until morning, and what remains of it until morning you shall burn with fire, and thus you shall eat it with a belt on your waist, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, so you shall eat it in haste. Excuse me. It is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt on that night, and I will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. Now the blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you. So I don't want to skip over this. So I'm just going to skip the part where it talks about the memorial and it being like a feast for the Lord. Not because it's not important, but because I want to try to get to as much of the meat and potatoes as possible. But chapter 12, verse 15, 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall remove the leaven from your houses. For whosoever eats leavened bread from the first day until the 7th day, that person shall be cut off from Israel. So you are no longer a part of this inheritance. You are no longer a part of my people, if you even have it in your house, and if you eat it from the first day until the 7th day. On the first day, there should be a holy convocation. So that's like a gathering, a celebration. And on the 7th day, there should be a holy convocation for you. No manner of work shall be done on them, but that which everyone must eat, that only may be prepared for you. So eating and prepping the food, that's pretty much the only thing that should be done during those days. So you shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, and on the same day I will have brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall observe this day throughout your generations for an everlasting ordinance. And so they were to do this every year, the first month, on the 14th day of the month at evening. You shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. You shall eat nothing leavened, and Like anybody that decides to go against that, then you can do it. He tells you can do it. Feel free to do it. But the consequences are you are now cut off. And with them witnessing all the stuff that he did to the Egyptians, I feel like that would have been a great example to not get cut off. But hey, we know some people tried it because he had to tell them not to do it. But in 21, then Moses called out for all the elders and said to them, pick out and take lambs for yourselves according to your families and kill the Passover lamb. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop, HYSSOP, dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel and 2 doorposts with the blood that is in the basin. So I was trying to find out what a hyssop is, and it apparently is one of those things that's just biblical. There's not really, from my understanding, it doesn't really exist anymore, unless what I was reading was incorrect. Kind of like the same stuff that Noah used to make the ark. There's like a relative of it, but it doesn't really like exist anymore. For the Lord will pass through and strike the Egyptians, and when he sees the blood on the lintel, on the two doorposts, the Lord will pass over the door and not allow the destroyer to come into your house and strike you. Don't leave the house during this point, because if you do, you're no longer in that hedge of protection. And he tells them that in the coming days, you can tell your children, like, we do this because this is what we did for God to keep us safe. 29, and when it came to pass at midnight, the Lord struck all the firstborn of the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh to his throne, to the captives that was in the dungeon, all the firstborn of the livestock. So everyone rose up to see that their firstborn was dead, and there was a great cry in all of Egypt. And it goes on to say that Moses was called by Pharaoh and told to leave with everybody. Take your livestock, take your people, take your young, take your women, and get out. And at this point, the Egyptians were also telling them to leave because they've lost their firstborn of whether it was children or livestock. So because their leader decided to be, I guess, stronger than he pretended to be stronger than he was, it caused death of innocent people. It caused death of people who weren't innocent. It caused death of people who were in prison, who had no possible way of keeping their children safe because they probably didn't even know about the Passover to begin with. One, because they probably weren't children of Israel, and two, because they were in jail / prison. So even if they did know at that point in time, there's possibly no way for them to even get the word out. And then you also have all the animals who really didn't do anything to anybody. But they were able to get, the children of Israel were able to get those articles of silver and gold and clothing. And they pretty much plundered Egypt. They took everything out of Egypt. And the verse 37, then the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Sukkoth, about 600,000 men on foot, besides their children. So looking into this a little bit, there was they only counted the men in this passage, and the children, and then the women, and then some of the people that left Egypt with the Israelites. They said it probably amounted to about 2 million people. So just imagine Moses having to lead 2 million people out of one area safely, and conjecture all of that God's telling him to tell Aaron to make sure all of these people are getting this message. Now, obviously, there's leaders of each tribe, and that leader probably gets it from Moses/Aaron, and they tell their group of people, because otherwise there's just no possible way for Moses to talk to 2 million people rapidly in order for everything to move the way that it needs to move. But just keep that in the back of your mind. 2 million people. And it says that they were in the land of Egypt for 430 years. And this is a callback to when God told Abraham that his descendants would be enslaved in Egypt for 400 years. So this is that coming to pass. And they took, I think that's a little further down. I don't want to skip over that. Let me just make sure I didn't skip that. Yeah, okay. And then there is in verse 43 all the way to 51, where it just details that like nobody outside of the children of Israel are allowed to partake in the Passover unless they have first been circumcised, because that was the ticket for them to actually partake in it. Like in order to be in the tribe of Israel by blood, you had to be circumcised at a certain time. If not, you were also cast out. So if someone that was a slave or somebody was just traveling with them for the time, if they wanted to partake in that Passover celebration, they had to be circumcised and then follow that tradition of laws that God had given Moses to give to the children of Israel. And then it goes to chapter 13, and God tells Moses that the firstborn of the men, or the mankind, and the beast are his. Pretty much going full circle, because he just killed all the firstborn of all these other people and these animals. So this is him separating his stuff from the other deity stuff, because theirs don't exist anymore, so these are obviously mine. And then it goes on about the unleavened bread, them eating it, not having leavened bread for that 7-day period, or else they get thrown out. And it just reiterates it because it's very important, because you don't want to really get thrown out of your inheritance of a land full of milk and honey because you decide to eat some sourdough. But in 13:11, it starts off by giving another law. And it shall be when the Lord brings you into the land of Canaan, the Canaanites, as he swore to you and your fathers, and gives it to you, that you shall set apart the Lord, that all that open the womb, that is, every firstborn that comes from an animal which you have, the male shall be the Lord's. But every firstborn of the donkey you shall redeem with the lamb. And if you do not redeem it, or if you will not redeem it, then you shall break its neck. And all the firstborn of man among your sons you shall redeem. So it, like even here there's sacrifice. If you don't redeem the donkeys with the lamb, then you have to kill the donkey. So it's just so much death and sacrifice, and I'll be honest, I don't necessarily understand it, and I'm not one for senseless death. But at this same point in time, like, these are people that have been enslaved in a place where these people were worshiping animal-headed people. Like, all these Egyptian gods and goddesses all had like different type of animal heads, and then they had like people bodies. There were some that were obviously disfigured, but this is just this is another way of God just separating his things from the rest of the world. And I don't want to miss this part because it's a very important part. So let me find it real quick. It had to do with the Passover when they were eating the lamb. Because it's not necessarily a premonition, but it's more of a prelude to why Jesus didn't get his bones broken. I'll find it later, but pretty much God told them not to, when they were eating the lamb for the Passover sacrifice, not to break the legs or break any bones of the lamb. And that's supposed to be a pretty much where Jesus was getting crucified, and he lived his life, and the prophecy said that no bones of his shall be broken. So that's kind of like the start of where that came from. That lamb was a sacrifice to keep them from getting killed in Egypt. His bones weren't broken. Jesus was the lamb to get us salvation. His bones weren't broken. But his blood was shed. This lamb's blood was shed. He did the communion, which we drank his blood, ate his body, but we didn't break his bones. Same thing with the Passover. So with God just doing everything full circle. Not necessarily the same way, but the same way in conjecture. So it just shows you how, like, to the point God is. And there is no, like, you can try to find it. You're not going to. There's like there's not even a point anything % chance that there could be any hiccup in his plan whatsoever. Like, everything he does is fine-tuned to the point where you'd probably go insane trying to find a mistake versus just actually just doing what he says. But it comes to the point where they are traveling through the desert on their exodus, and God sets up a cloud by day and fire by night, so they know where they're going, and actually they can see at night. So in 14, they get to the Red Sea, and Pharaoh and his servants have like a revelation on like, why do we let these people go? Who's going to serve us now? So he takes, excuse me, I think 600 of his best chariots. Yeah, 600 choice chariots, and all the chariots of Egypt with captains over every one of them. And they chased after the children of Israel, the Israelites. Now, up until this point, the Israelites are like, they're happy. They're full of like pride because they've escaped all these horrible things. But when they hear about the Egyptians actually coming to bring them back, they start freaking out and blaming Moses and telling Moses, like, why would you bring us out here just to die? Like, there's no graves in Egypt. And that's a reference to something I'll bring up here shortly. It was better for us to just be there and be enslaved than to be out here in the wilderness and die. And so obviously Moses brings that to God's attention. And God's like, why are you crying out to me? Like, I got you this far. Like, why would I bring you this far to just leave you here? So God does another miracle. He sets the the same cloud and the fire to divide them. And then it gets to the point where God tells Moses to stretch his hands out over the sea, the Red Sea, and it parts, and they travel through it to the other side. Now, keep in mind, it's 2 million people. 2 million people just taking their time through the Red Sea. And I don't know how long it is from one point of the Red Sea to the other side of the Red Sea. But even if it's not a long distance, we still got 2 million people and the livestock and all the things that they plundered out of Egypt. So it probably took a while. And it does say that the same cloud that protected them provided darkness so that the Egyptians couldn't see it. And then that fire prevented them from crossing it through night. So the same light that they were using and the same cloud that God was allowing there to be there was the same thing that he used to protect them while they were crossing through the Red Sea. Meaning that if that fire is there protecting them from the backside, that it had to be nighttime. So that just lets you know that it obviously wasn't just like a couple hours and then they were on the side. It took some time. Then it got to the point where everybody made it to the other side, and for whatever reason, the Egyptians started going through the Red Sea after the Israelites. To the point where God allowed for their wheels and things to start breaking and falling apart, to the point where the Egyptians were like, no, we got to get out of here because obviously God is on their side and we're not going to win this. And at that point of revelation that they realized that we can't win this, God's with them. God tells Moses, put your hands up again with the rod and I'm going to bring down the waters. And he did, and they all died, Pharaoh included. And so in chapter 15, it just talks about the song of Moses and the song of Miriam. And it's really just a poem in song form, kind of like David did with the Psalms. So they sing the songs, they're giving God praise, they're giving God glory. And Miriam, the prophetess, this is in verse 20 of 15, the sister of Aaron, took the timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out with her and the timbrels and with dances. And Miriam answered them, sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and its rider, he was thrown into the sea. 22, so Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea. Then they went out into the wilderness of Shur, and they went 3 days into the wilderness and found no water. Now when they came to Marah, they could not drink the water because it was bitter, which is why they called it Marah, which translates into bitter. And the people complained against Moses again, saying, what shall we drink? So Moses cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree. When he cast the tree into the waters, it made the water sweet. And then there they made a statue, an ordinance for them. And there he tested them, and he said, if you diligently, and this is God talking, if you diligently heed the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his sight, give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you which I have put on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees, and they camped there by the waters. So before I end, this is the part that I wanted to reference earlier. So each plague is God attacking one of the Egyptian gods. And this is, I'll spell out the names just so when you take notes, if you're looking at the past video or taking notes now. So the first plague was blood. And that was the god Happy, Hapi. And that's the god that dealt with blood. And then the second plague was frogs. And the god dealing with frogs, had like a frog head, frog amulet type of thing, was Hecht, and that's Heqt. Third one was lice, and that is the god and I think this is a god and goddess. But Hathor and Nut. The first one is Hathor, and then obviously Nut is Nut. Flies is the fourth one. God/goddess is Shu, Isis, Shu, and Isis. The fifth one was the diseased livestock, and that's the god Apis, Apis. Sixth is the boils, and that's Sekhmet. That's going to be Shekhmet. Seventh is going to be hail, and that's the god Geb, Geb. Eighth is going to be the locust, and that is the god Serapis, Serapis. The ninth one is darkness, and that's going to be Ra, because Ra is spelled R-A. Ra is the god that essentially would take his chariot through the sky, and that's when the sun would come up, and when he go down to the underworld to, I think, have some kind of conversation with Anubis and essentially reborn himself. That would be night. So reborn, sun, S-O-N, S-U-N. That's where they get sun worship. That's why it's anytime you see like some kind of satanic or anti-God establishment, they're always kind of mocking the sun. So it's like son of whatever, sun trust, sun kiss, whatever. It's S-U-N and instead of S-O-N. So it's kind of like mockery. And then the 10th one is death, and that's against all the Egyptian gods, because it was essentially God's doing, Jehovah God is doing everything that these gods/goddesses are in control of, but they couldn't stop it. So it's like God showing not only these demons, these fallen angels, that you have no power over me and you have no power against me, but it's also showing their followers that, look, you're worshiping these people that can't even, these fallen angels, that they tell you they're gonna do this, and you're worshiping them, and they can't protect you. So each plague was like God showing off that, hey, look, your gods are saying they're here, but they're not doing anything. Now the Twilight thing, when they killed the lamb, the sacrifice, a lot of notes say that this is roughly the same time that Jesus was killed, around 3 p.m. And a lot of satanic organizations, they like to do things during 3:30, 3 p.m., 3 a.m. 3 a.m. is considered, 3 to 4 is considered the witching hour. If you look at the way they did the blood, if you put it together, it kind of makes a cross. You put the two posts together, and then you bring down the headboard, so to speak, kind of makes a cross. So this is kind of like God outlining everything that was going to take place for the Passover for the Christians, not just the Israelites. So they went through a more severe, like, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, to keep them in line, keep them in check. Whereas, because they couldn't directly talk to God, and we'll cover that later once we get to it, you had to talk to a priest who had to be clean in all regards, and if he wasn't, like, God would kill him. So there was no personal relationship with God. You just worshiped God and you just did what he said. And if you did that within those parameters, then you were safe. But if you decided that you were going to go against that, or you felt like you were better than that, not only were you probably killed, but you probably exiled from the Israelites as well. So this wraps up the Egyptians versus the Israelites arc of Exodus. The next coming chapters are going to be a lot deeper dive into the laws and all the things that they were supposed to do, not supposed to do, why they weren't supposed to do it, and why like everything equals out to what it is. So the rest of Exodus is gonna be real intensive. So just just want to keep that in mind. But yeah, that is Exodus 10 through 15.